All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. I'm Tricia Bertram-Gallant, one of your co-hosts. This is episode 51, if you can believe it. I know I can't. And I am bringing back a blast from the past, episode 27, Ludwig. I said I want to pronounce it properly, but he's joined this time by his partner in book crime, Todd Zakrajsek. Well, I messed up.
Ski. Where'd you get the
Zakrajsek.
ski from?
Zakrajsek.
There you
Zakrajsek.
go. Perfect.
I spelled it phonetically and I still messed up.
That's
So
okay.
welcome, Todd. Thanks for joining Lou and I. You're on here because you've written a book that I got to preview ahead of time, and we're going to talk about that because I really do think it's a book that's coming out at the right time for a lot of people that I talk to when I'm going around the country talking to folks at different colleges and universities. But before we get there, let's do what we normally do and have you fill our audience in on who you are, what you do, and what context. And Lou, people met you, like I said, back in episode 27, but do you have any exciting updates other than this book that you want to share with folks?
So yeah, this Lew Ludwig. I'm at Denison University. I'm a full professor of mathematics here. I'm teach back in the classroom. I did run our teaching center for 5 years, so that term has ended or rotated out. So I'm
Yep,
back in the classroom, and I'm using AI to do alternative grading this semester. I'm doing
that's right.
standards-based grading for the first time ever, so kind of interested in that. So that's kind of my fun thing for this semester.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. And Todd, what do you do in what
Um,
context?
I just retired from UNC Chapel Hill School of Medicine. So I was at UNC for 18 years. And before that, I was at Central Michigan and then, hot months, Southern Oregon State College. So done that enough. I'm just going to try to focus on some other things now. So I'm still writing,
Nice.
running early teaching conferences, and as you run around the country chatting with people,
Yeah.
amazing folks.
Well, I have to say I'm a little jealous about the retirement thing. I've got another, 6.5 years to go or so, but congratulations.
Thank you.
It's nice being able to choose what you want to do when you want to do it,
It has
even when we
actually
love our work.
it's caused a couple problems
Yeah.
because when I collaborate with somebody and say, hey, maybe we could meet like Tuesday at 3 o'clock and then we could like get together for this thing. It's like I'll hear somebody say, I've got a job still.
I've got a job, Todd. I can't
Oh
just
yeah,
meet at
sorry
the
about that.
last second. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I hear it.
Anyway,
So,
yeah.
okay, as I mentioned, you've got a new book, The Science of Learning Meets AI. It's not out yet, right? We're on pre-order.
Yeah, it's pre-order.
Should
Comes
be
Pre-order
out
about
will be
April. So.
yeah.
April. We'll put that in the show notes. Um, so, I read it early on. I gave you an endorsement, my first ever book
Thank
endorsement.
you.
I did think it was a very helpful, grounded, practical book.
Okay.
But some might argue that there's lots of good books out there about AI in higher education. And so for the skeptics out there that are like, oh, yet another book, why should we get this one? How is your book different from all the other books that are out there right now?
I can take this to get started here. I think one of the biggest things is the reason Lou and I did this is we were looking at a lot of really good books out there that were describing what AI could do and how you could do AI. And we kept chatting back and forth. It's like the only thing that was missing was the why. Why
Mm,
would you use it?
hmm
And so when we started talking about that, then we were looking at the concept of tying it back into memory and cognition. And I've written a couple of books on the science of learning. And
mm.
Lou's one, I think, contacted me and said, hey, I'm thinking about writing this book on AI, and what can you tell me that we could talk over about the science of learning? Yeah, maybe we could collaborate on this thing. So we ended up working together on it. And I think that's the really big thing, though, is it's a book that's designed to actually, if you think about the things we have known for the longest time about learning that works, we know
Yeah.
repetition works, we know that spaced learning works, we know about elaboration, all of those things. And so now what we're looking at is how can you use AI to help bring those about? So that if a
Mm,
student, for instance, you want students to better understand metacognition and how they study, it's how would you use AI and prompt and do the prompts and help the faculty to talk to students too about the concept of metacognition and how you can use it. And students can do scenarios and play around
hmm
with role plays and stuff. And so that was the biggest thing is just looking at the science of it, science of learning and tying it
Yeah,
back in.
and that was what he just described. That's chapter 7 in the book. So, and the other thing is, I think one of the things that with the book, we both come from teaching centers. backgrounds, and you're always trying to do that workshop. You're trying to put it together and all that kind of thing. The way the book is laid out, the first couple three chapters are really written to the individual user and kind of getting them just okay, folks, this is not where we wanted to be, but we are. We just kind of, have to
Yeah.
move forward with it. So just kind of, recognizing that. But then we really get into like, Todd has talked about chapter 7. So if you want to know about, things like memory and cognition, grab chapter 7. You can just read it as a standalone chapter. And in there are little increments of things that you can actually do. We use this method called ACE, which is, oh God, Todd, let's see, we're going to what? Adapt, uh, ACE, create, and embed. So it's kind of a
Mm.
three-step process, but you have large chunks of actual worksheets almost that you could pull out of the book and run a workshop just on that stuff. So if you want to do UDL, that's chapter 4. Backward design, that's chapter
Yeah.
6. So it really kind of plug and play as far as kind of the hidden thing in there. It's really almost feels like a workbook in some sense for center directors who are kind of busy and harried and
Mm.
trying to get things through. So you can kind of take it a chapter at a time. You don't have to read the whole book. So.
Right. No, and I read it when I read it not in order.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that's how David and I planned our book too, right? It's like read these first 2 chapters and then go in whatever order you want for whatever thing you're struggling with right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I just have to say real quickly, the reason that Lou was having a little trouble getting the ACE in there is that for the longest time we had a different model,
Ah,
and it was an ICI model for integrate and create and embed. But it was, or what's the other one? But it was a Luke picked it up one day. He said, "We can't go with this." And
we
I said,
can't
"Why?
go with
It's
that.
great."
No,
And he
can't go
says,
with that.
"No, it's icky.
Yeah, it's
So
icky.
Exactly.
can't do something
So.
with an acronym of icky." So that was
So
how that we changed this recently.
I think that was wise. So, so is this one of those books? And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. This is one of those books. It's like, you have to use AI. AI is fantastic. Look at all the ways you can use AI to improve your teaching or change your teaching or work with students. Because there's so many of us that are worried about AI having a negative influence on things like metacognition. And so, but so are you saying like, yay, rah, 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 AI? Or you're just saying like,
Yeah.
here's a way you could positively use it?
So, chapters 1 and 2 kind of really speak to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we didn't ask for this, right? We didn't ask for this unregulated, unchecked technology to just keep pouring on us every 2 weeks, right? This is
No.
not something that we asked for. So, it's okay to kind of be just put off and hey, I don't need more of this. So what the book is really about is not so much hey, here's the latest buzzword that you can use with AI, but really how can you help it to improve your teaching, to make your student learning better, right, for your students. So there's just a lot of different activities that you can do just to kind of really elevate the things that you're probably already doing and maybe you're just a little bit too busy to do, but
Mm,
now all of a sudden AI can really help with that. So for example, the tilt process, the
yeah.
transparency in learning and
Yeah.
teaching, which Winklemas came up with 15 years ago or stuff, helps a lot of students, right? Especially those underrepresented students and things like that. But how do you do that? How do you go through and tilt your assignment? You can just ask AI to help you with that.
Yeah.
But don't forget, you're the expert. So then you can read through the stuff, see if it makes sense, see if it fits in the context of what you're doing. So I'm not, we're not rushing off and saying, hey, here's the project you're going to do with your students. Maybe you'll get there, having them use AI. But again, we're just trying to get it back to more how can you productively use it to help with your own teaching and with your
Hmm.
student learning and understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would jump in there quickly and say too, I mean, there's the other part of this is that I think we're still getting hung up a lot on the fact that this is the tool. And eventually, whatever the tool is that everybody's excited about, that will go away. And what will be
Yep.
left is the thing that you really want to talk about. And so at one time, probably colleges had departments of electricity because they had all oil lamps. And then they wired these things. And faculty members would walk in and punch a button and the lights would come in. So you'd call the Department of
Yep.
Electricity and then it just is part of the system.
Yeah.
Internet. We don't right now say to somebody else is like how to create a worm syllabus using the internet or how to use the internet to do this. I mean, it's
Right.
just become part of the system. So I think what we did with the book is we've written in a way that AI could kind of drop out as a term, and you could talk still about the learning concepts. And as Lew was mentioning, backward design and all these concepts that are in there, tilting, and there's stuff in there about social psychology and other things. So that's a big aspect of it too. I think the roots of this book are on the foundational principles, not on yay,
Yeah.
let's use AI.
And that's what I noticed when I read it. I really thought it was not that it was intended as this, but I actually thought it was a really nice follow-up to our book because in our
Mhm.
book we talk about the science of learning in relation to cheating, right? And how do you use that that knowledge to and make cheating the exception and integrity the norm. And but we wrote ours before ChatGPT came out and then had to go back in and like revise it, over 3 months to now fit in AI stuff. Whereas you 2.5 or 3 years later have had a chance to play with it both as, teaching professionals and as professors. And you've had a chance to play with it and, like Lew said, teach people and show people how to use it. And so I really felt like it was a grounded of, okay, here's all that science of learning, and now this is how you can use AI to help you put that into practice. And everything you say in there should help with integrity and it should help with learning.
Mhm.
And so I thought that was great for that reason, because I am a hopeful pessimist when it comes to AI impacts on education. And your book is me on the hopeful side of thing. We have agency as instructors, as universities, and we can make choices to use it or not use it and how we use it, right?
I like
Right.
that
And yeah, I
term.
think that's one of the big things is making sure, I think with the book, as you move through it's just really making you aware of what potential there is for using AI or not using AI. But the thing is, we're at that point now where you really have to kind of get in the game, so to speak, right? So that you can make an informed decision. I
Yeah.
think at the time of just kind of standing back and waiting for somebody else to figure things out, that ship has done sailed. No one's really
Yeah.
figuring this out. You have to figure it out in your own context, what's going to work for you and what's going to work for your students. And you have to understand how to use this thing so that if you do want to kind of not use it that much in your class, you have to understand it enough to know why. Or if you do want to try to use it more in your teaching, how might it be useful? But again, you need to make those informed decisions. And again, I'm just going to keep circling back to that thing. Don't forget, you're the expert, right?
Yeah.
So you're the one that gets to make the judgment. So when you're using it, do it within the context of what you understand really well, your classroom, right? You understand the context, you understand the material, you
Hmm.
understand your students. So when you're
Hmm.
working with it in that context, you can make then the end call of whether this is worthwhile or not. And what the book helps you do is kind of explore different ways of how you might do that.
To play around.
Yeah, and before we move on though, I was thinking there's a comment in, I think it was LinkedIn recently, of a faculty member that says, I'm not going to use AI in any way in my class.
Yeah.
And so I had to type in a little response real quick. This says, okay, so any papers that students write are just going to be personal opinions, right? Because they can't possibly go out and look for anything because, and that's why I was thinking about that as Lou was answering too, is now that the search engines all are driven with AI,
Right.
as soon as you type something into a search engine, you're now using AI.
Yep.
The question I think needs to shift pretty quickly from are you using it or will you use it to how are you using it and how will you move forward with it? And the stuff Lou described is more purposeful, where you think about how you're going to use it and you use
Yeah.
it as opposed to just it just kind of appearing in places.
Yeah. Well, you almost made me think there, it's like, are you using it or is it using you? Right? Because we
Oh,
know
that's
Yeah.
we know
interesting.
the tools are using us. They're using us
Oh,
to
yeah.
train it. The
Yep.
companies are using us to train their tools, right? And so no matter what we do when we're using them, we are being used as well. But we could be again, we could be more of the agent in this process or less of an agent in the process, right?
Right. And I think the other thing that's really for a lot of folks, there's just been so many. I talk about oftentimes that there's these little shiny objects that are floating around. Like, try this, try that, right? And there's just too many shiny objects. And I think
Hmm.
we need to kind of focus on, not what's the latest and greatest prompt that you might be using, but again, just kind of stepping back and seeing how might this work, in my teaching, in my students' learning and things like that. And not worry about that, shiny hammer effect. I mean,
Yeah.
oh, I got to run it, I got to use it. Todd always likes to talk about, clickers and how those were the shiny objects for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, it was. It was funny when Lou mentioned that. We talked about that before too. Is faculty would come and say, I want to use clickers in the classroom. I'm running a center, and I said, for what? And he said, well, I want to get my students' opinions. I say, have them raise their hands.
Yeah.
Say, yeah, but I want to get students' opinions where I know what the degree of something is. I said, okay, have them raise their hands with the number of fingers up. I don't know it at all, or I know it really well. No, no, I want it to be anonymous. Tell them to close their eyes. It's like until you can tell me why you really want to use it, then don't do it because
Yes.
it's just adding complication. I think good thing to bring up there, Luke, because the same thing here is if you go to, there's an AI for that. I haven't done it recently, but there's like 40,000 AIs listed on this thing. So what you have to do, and Ethan Mullick said this one time, long time ago, is there's just a couple, you need 3 or 4 really good ones that you can kind of use as a foundation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So if you were consulting with a department right now, and they were asking what should we do now? We're in the middle of a term, whether you're a quarter or semester school, you're in the middle of a term. Or maybe not the middle, but you know what I mean. You're in the progress of a term.
Mhm.
What's one thing instructors could do now, this term? And what's one thing they should think about doing for fall? So I'm a big fan of giving people like maybe shorter term, like lower hanging fruit, less effort things, and then things will probably take you more effort that you're going to have to plan out for your fall courses.
Yeah.
So whichever one wants, maybe one of you takes one and one takes the other.
You want to take the low fruit or the high fruit, Todd?
I want the first one.
I go for it.
I mean, the one thing you could do now is the book will be out very soon. One
Hmm.
of the things that we purposely did with it, though, and I should put it in there, is that, and Lew is really, really good at this, is we have prompts in the book that you basically cut and paste.
Yeah.
And so anybody in any discipline, it doesn't matter what it is, if you want to do something on metacognition or something,
Okay.
it's you have the prompt in there, the meta prompt essentially, where you ask AI
Yeah.
how to ask the question, and you get to put in there, I am a psychology faculty member in a class. It would be, I am a blank faculty member in a class of X number, and you just fill in each of those pieces and hit the button, and it gives you the answer.
Yeah.
And so that's really handy. But I think along that way is, I think just getting started is just look at what you're doing and
Mhm.
figure out one thing that you could do that would be more interesting with AI, and play around with that. It could be as simple as an icebreaker at the beginning of class. It
Mhm.
could be how to have students do role plays. It could be just about anything. But I think for early kind of the early win to do it is use one of the standard Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini kind of, something like that, and just come up with something that you can do just to get your feet wet, just get rolling
Yeah.
with it.
Right.
That's the first one.
And again, do it in your area of expertise, right? So
Yes.
Yeah.
if you want to tilt an assignment or something, I'm always that low fruit for me is I already have assignments. How could I improve this assignment, right? Just
Yeah.
tilt it and add a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I guess I get the high hanging fruit, which means something a little bit more long term.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned at the beginning of the session here, that I'm moving now into standards-based grading, right? So that's a
Right.
form of alternative grading, which holy cow, I've been looking at for 15, 20 years. I always like,
Yep.
yeah, but it's just, there's just so much planning and stuff that's going on. So now I'm figuring out how to use AI to do that. So that's a
Mm.
longer term thing, right? So one of the things I think that we have a whole section, chapter 6 talks about backward design. So I have a class, maybe I've been teaching it for a while, but really, what are my learning goals? What are my, say,
Yeah.
6 or 8 learning goals, right? You can use AI to kind of organize those thoughts to think about, okay, here's my main learning goals. Then backwards design, you ask, hey, how am I assessing whether they're meeting these goals or not?
Mhm.
And then finally, you worry about the teaching of how you might deliver that. So I think for a long-term thing, like maybe headed into May or something like that, take a course that you've been teaching for a while and you're like, pretty comfortable with it and stuff, but it could always use a little bit of tweaking.
Mhm.
Think about what a backward design process would look like with that, with AI as kind of your eager assistant to help kind of keep track of stuff. You can share, past tests and quizzes and all that sort of stuff with it to kind of help organize those thoughts. And you can turn off things so it doesn't share the data. Or if you
Yeah.
want to use Notebook LM, right, that specifically looks just at your data and stuff like that. That's a Google product. But I think the backward design would be a really interesting process to kind of think about over the summer to kind of give that course that you've had around a while, give it a little, freshening up, so to
Be
speak, a
fresh.
2.0 version.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I
And,
was going to
and
say real quickly though,
yeah.
again, I learn every time I listen to Lew. I think of new things. Something that would be easy to do, but long-term planning, so
Yeah.
you get both ask the questions, is take your syllabus and just run your syllabus through AI and ask it some questions about, like, does this sound friendly? Does it sound warm? What's the tone overall kind of thing, or what would you get out of it? Where are the students going to be confused? There's several things you could just ask, and it
Yeah.
would be very easy for anybody to do that.
Yeah, especially if you let it know, like class is taken by sophomore students that are, and
Mhm.
describe your situational context, can be really helpful. I was just going to encourage folks. I don't know that there's a college or university out there that doesn't provide an AI tool at this point, because they're either providing Copilot because it comes with Microsoft Office Suite, or they're providing Gemini because it comes with the Google Suite. So depending on if your campus is a Google campus or a Microsoft campus, you're going to have access to one of those two tools at this point. And so I would encourage you to use, if you're going to be giving in information about students or anything else, I would encourage you to use the tool that is under your university's license, versus some free tool out there on the internet.
Good advice.
So what do you think? Okay, so the thing that's been in all the buzz on LinkedIn and everywhere right now, and it's in all my presentations to make sure people know about it, are the darn agents, right? Perplexity Comet or was the first one that I experimented with that actually worked in the sense of it really easily did what it said it was going to do, i.e. complete quizzes in Canvas or what have you. So that's been all the talk. So that's where we are right now. But more recent talk is like put this right in your terminal on your own computer, run your own locally, your own local agent. Given that, given the other things you're seeing, like what the heck is teaching and I would say validating learning gonna look like in 1 to 5 years? We say we can't keep chasing that shiny tool, but at the same time, that shiny tool keeps changing everything that we're doing.
Mm,
It
yeah.
does. I think, and we've talked about this a little bit too. And number one is, I guess I've just started recently thinking this too, is the concept of what education is looking like and going to look like has completely changed what higher education will do. I
Yeah.
think we just haven't figured that out yet. A lot of
Mm.
people haven't. So they're still doing the same kinds of assignments, and they're spending a lot of times, and I do too, tweaking things and moving things around. But
Yeah.
the 5 paragraph paper is gone. The concept of exams that you have take home exams, or people are saying that problem sets that you do, and
Yeah.
physics and everyone else that if AI is going to do all this stuff, and people can say to the students, and I used to do it as well, is to say, if you don't do the work, you're not going to do the learning. And I figured if you really got down to the point of like, I used to ask in workshops, like, how many of you jog? And people's hands would go up and I said, they make cars, right? You could just get in a car. And the point, of course, is if you don't jog, you don't get an aerobic. So we could make that argument. The
Yeah.
problem is humans, along with every other organism out there, will take shortcuts when they
Yeah.
can, which is why a lot of New Year's resolutions are broken, is
Yeah.
because I'm going to run every day, but I don't. So
Yeah.
the students are going to use AI to do these things. And so authentic kinds of learning experiences with real immersion kinds of things, I think that's where we're going to have to be.
Yes.
And people running around chasing this concept of how we catch students cheating is trying to hold on to a model that's already gone. We just don't know it yet
Yeah,
in
and
some
it was gone before AI, right? We have a $1 billion+ contract cheating industry that was taking entire courses for students online, completing
respects.
their assessments online. I mean, this has been I said in my first book in 2008, we're still teaching and assessing as if it's the 20th century and the internet doesn't exist, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But yet
Yeah. Mhm.
what are we going to lose just because we can't assign a 5 paragraph essay anymore in terms of as a way to validate student learning? Can't we aren't there underlying what's the learning science say about the process of writing or constructing arguments in written form that we don't want to lose? We don't want to just throw these things away if they were actually a vehicle for something useful, right?
Yeah. So when this thing hit November 30th, 2022, it was
Yep.
ChatGPT 3.5. And by like March of that year, Todd and different people were talking. I'm like, you know what? The next book is going to be something about alternative grading in
Yeah.
AI. And just as a very, we're only 2 or 3 weeks into the semester, but that does, so I'm a STEM person, right, in mathematics. And for a sophomore level class, it's still manageable so that I have students doing work outside of class, they're watching videos, they're doing notes and things like that, but then they're assessing little small segments built in. That works great for a first and second year class. By the time you get to junior and senior year where there's harder things and maybe we have to prove stuff, yeah, it's going to get a lot more difficult. And maybe we are going to have to kind of retool the thinking of, in this day and age, because again, those types of classes, we were basically getting them ready for grad school.
Right.
Maybe 10% of our students going to grad school, right? So we're
Yeah.
really preparing them for the best sort of thing. So I think we might have to start rethinking not only how we're teaching, but also what we're teaching and what's going to be useful for them.
And why? Yeah. I was talking, I think it was at a college, a community college, and they said, we're trying to help our students become scholars. And I said, why?
Yeah.
How many of your students go on to be actual scholars? All of us need to be able to communicate. We all need to hopefully be able to read scientific literature and other literature to be educated, informed citizens of the world, let alone professionals. But do we really all need to be trained on how to be scholars? I think that's a 20th century idea,
I
maybe
think
a
so. And
19th
before we
century
move,
idea.
I think so. Before we move on, though, I do want to come back to that statement you said. What are we going to lose too? And the number one is I just want to mention automaticity. is that when you practice something over and over again, the neuronal pathway fires more easily, and that's how we get to
Yes.
the point where we can do something without thinking about it.
Muscle
When you get
memory.
in the car, yeah, well,
You
yes.
used a big fancy word, but it's muscle memory,
Yeah,
right?
right. And it's the same thing for words. I mean, it could be something like driving a car where you have actual
Yep.
physiological things you're doing.
Yep.
It could be the words we're using right now. And you can't look these words up as we're talking. You have to be able to catch them like really fast. So
Right.
if we're not careful, that's the hard part of learning. And if
Yeah.
that goes away, you don't get the other stuff. And then the other
But
one,
yeah,
oh,
go
go
for it.
ahead.
No, you
The
go.
only one I was going to say is that I think the other thing we might lose is that you sit down and as a faculty member, I'd grade all the papers and I hated doing it, but I got to know my students.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is assignments and things are going to happen, whereas faculty will use things that speed things up for us as well. And I'm not sure we'll get to know our students as well.
Yeah.
That automaticity things.
Yeah. Automaticity. Yes. Um, so earlier in our conversation, I said that I'm a hopeful pessimist.
Mhm.
So I want you to each give me something you're pessimistic about, which just means you're critical of it. Doesn't
Okay.
mean it's a doomsday scenario, just you're critical and then I want you to give me something you're hopeful about. And what that means is that you feel like with moral agency or any kind of agency, human agency, that we could solve it if we really put our minds to it. So what are you pessimistic about in terms of AI and education, integrity, learning?
Do you want me to start, Lou, or you want to start?
Yeah, go for it.
The pessimistic side of me is what I was just talking about. Is I'm really, really nervous that learning is hard, learning is work. And we all have had that feeling when we go to the library and it's late at night and we're exhausted and we're either working on the paper or we're learning, we're just memorizing stuff and doing all those types of
That's
things.
that friction we talk about.
Yes,
Yeah.
flashcards and all that stuff, and it's hard work. Bob Bjork out at UCLA has the Learning and Memory Lab, and he talks about desirable difficulties.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be difficult.
Right.
I am pessimistic about that side, that if AI makes things easier and people choose the easier one, then we might lose the foundation of learning, which is not insignificant at all.
Yeah.
And that movie, that terrible movie, Idiocracy,
Yeah.
come up
Oh
more and more
gosh.
now.
Yeah.
It made a resurgence because you watch that and you look at what could happen if people stop thinking, and it gets
Hmm.
pretty scary about that. So,
And
Lou, I'll let you do the. I'm sorry.
well,
Go ahead.
yeah, and I'll give Lou a couple more seconds to think because I was just thinking and this is we mentioned the agents, but we didn't even talk about AI glasses. So you're saying we couldn't look up the words in the middle of this conversation, but that's what they're promising us with these AI smart glasses or brain computer interfaces is that the AI would be able to help us in that nanosecond.
It would have to be the brain inter. I mean, it have to be
Yeah, the brain
plugged into the brain.
interface.
It can't just be the glasses that were.
Right.
It tells you the definition of words, though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and I,
Yeah.
I actually jokingly said years and years ago, is there will come a point where they'll put a chip in your back of your head and they'll wire it into your brain, and then
Yep.
just all the knowledge will be there. And
Yep.
it used to be funny, but now I think we're getting to a point where it's not inconceivable.
It's called Neuralink. Yeah. All right.
Was that the pessimistic or
Yeah, you do the
optimistic viewpoint
pessimistic,
that Chip?
He
then
got
I'll do an optimistic, and then you can do the
yeah.
pessimistic.
Actually, I'm gonna, so I think one of the things about the learning and the hard and all that, difficult, that again, I'm gonna spin back to this alternative thing because it is kind of a thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit. I'm a STEM person, right? So everything's on points, right?
Yeah.
And transactionally, you do something and I give you points, and you collect these points to earn something that's going to take you somewhere.
Yeah.
As a student, isn't it your job to optimize those points?
Mm.
So if I hand out homework, your thing is to optimize that as best you can. Now, I can stand up there and say, this is formative work, and I just want you to do so and so, so you can learn all the muscle. One ear out the other, they're just optimizing. They're just optimizing, right? So instead, some of the other opportunities we have, like, so for example, with this standards-based grading, hey, you got 13 things you need to know for this semester. You're going to be tested on each one 3 times. You have to meet a certain level twice each time.
Mhm.
So you can take it the first time, not pass it, not meet that standard, but then learn from that experience. So here's my hopeful thing. My hopeful thing is that if the students, and it's going to take some time, they're not there yet, but if they can kind of trust me, we can build this trust that yes, they can be successful at doing this, and they're
Yeah.
actually going to be thinking about it. I'm hoping it's just going to be a breath of fresh air. Like, wow, I can do math. I can do this if somebody gives me an opportunity and doesn't just make it this high stakes test. Like, boom, I got it. I
Right.
got a 73. Well, but they
Right.
just, 73, they just toss in the bin. they don't even think about the 27% they don't understand. So that's where
Mhm.
I'm kind of getting a little hopeful that maybe this might be an opportunity to kind of reset and rethink some of these assessments that we do. So again, the Google Glasses, all that kind of thing. I mean, yeah, I guess I can kind of keep those out of the classroom, but again, it's trying to set the students up to have productive struggle, and then I don't want to say reward, but benefit from that productive struggle.
Well, really, I mean, because all of the way we have been doing grading and assessment of learning has been by made up human social constructions that had nothing to do with the science of learning. The
Right.
Carnegie Credit Hour, right? That was for logistical, organizational reasons.
Yeah.
You only have at our school 10 weeks, at some schools 12 weeks, at some schools 14, at some 16 weeks to master the material. And then it's everything is high stakes, and if you fail to master it by that time, that means you fail. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm hopeful that we move more to that competency-based education model that is not constrained by 19th and 20th century logistical
Yeah.
hurdles, basically, right? But that's a hard lift in our
It is.
society.
It is, but I think if we're strategic about it, this evil force known as AI might actually be able to bend that to our
Yep.
advantage and help us with that. I mean, I would not have done alternative grading.
Right.
AI caused me to do alternative grading, but I couldn't have done it without the AI, right? I couldn't have done the
Yeah.
alternative grading without, because there's just so much planning that it took me to do. So
Yeah.
That's good. And before we move on, I think there's one last one I'd like to say is it rolls in the positive and the negative all in once, and that's
Yeah.
equity. It's the
Equity.
equity. I think we're going to have a situation where students coming up, they have available AI and people around to show them how to do it, and then you've got students with less resources. There'll be huge
Yeah.
learning gaps, massive
Yeah.
learning gaps. And on the other hand, just like you mentioned with cheating, and I don't want to put this, as a positive spin on that aspect, but there was a time that only the students with money could buy papers, and
Oh
then
yeah.
the
I
students
said,
couldn't. So to
yep.
some extent, it's going to equalize the fact that everybody can approach it as long as they have the same resources.
Right.
So I would put down the inequity as both the biggest possibility and the biggest
Yeah. Yeah, I
concern.
was known for saying the internet democratized cheating. Yeah, you didn't have to
Yeah,
be a rich
good.
white fraternity dude anymore. Um, and I am worried if I play out what I'm seeing in K through 12 right now, I am worried that the future will look like poor students will get AI education and rich students will get rich human to human learning experiences.
mhm.
They'll
You'll
get
get
to
the blended,
access.
right?
Yeah, it'll be blended, of course, but the added value will be the human to human interaction, but that will cost more, and everybody else will just get this AI delivered stuff to their house kind of thing. So I don't know. We'll see. But I am hopeful because of gentlemen like yourselves, by academics and faculty who are really like applying what we've known for decades about the science of learning to this problem and giving people really just practical tips about how to use that to improve their teaching and help students learn with integrity. So I really appreciate it, and you two give me hope.
Well, thank you. Well,
Thanks so much,
since you said
Tricia.
the whole part, as I would say, you had your statement before, was it the what did you say
Hopeful
about
pessimist.
hopeful pessimist? I put down that I have pathological levels of optimism.
There you
So
go. I love it. I love it. Well, thanks so much, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Tricia.
thank you.